What if your darkness is your truest mirror? What if the part of you you've been hiding is the only part that knows the truth? What if the pain you've buried is the only voice still telling you who you are? What if your answers aren't in the light, but in the very thing you fear most? Imagine this: a vast underground chamber, silent and forgotten. The walls are carved with the words you've never spoken. A mirror stands in the center, cracked, ancient, glowing faintly in the dark. You step closer, and it doesn't reflect your face. It shows your fear, your guilt, your fury. It shows the parts you've spent your life locking away, and it whispers your name. A man once avoided journaling because he feared what he'd write. But when he finally picked up the pen, he met a version of himself he never knew existed, and finally understood why his relationships kept falling apart. Welcome to UMBRA INSIGHT, where shadow psychology meets dark motivation. In today's journey, you'll be given 3 journaling prompts, simple but terrifying, because they don't just ask you to write. They ask you to face the truths you've buried beneath years of silence. They ask you to become intimate with your shadow self. This isn't about self-improvement. This is about self-confrontation. And it begins now.
They told you to love yourself, to stay positive, to focus on the light. But they never told you what to do with the darkness, the rage you feel at night, the shame you carry from childhood, the shadow of a parent's voice still echoing in your head, telling you that you're not enough. They told you to heal, but never handed you the map to your wounds. Shadow psychology gives you that map. And shadow work, it's how you learn to read it. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." He believed the parts of ourselves we repress, our fears, impulses, jealousies, and wounds, don't disappear. They simply go underground. They become our shadow self. And this shadow doesn't stay quiet. It sabotages your relationships. It whispers when you're insecure. It lashes out when you feel abandoned. It pretends to protect you, but really it wants you to stay broken. Not because it hates you, but because it's never been loved. The truth is brutal. You can't kill your shadow, but you can know it, understand it, integrate it. That's what shadow work is. A commitment to meeting the parts of you that society, your family, or even your younger self has tried to exile. And journaling, that act of quietly bleeding truth onto a page, is one of the most sacred doors into this inner world. You don't need a therapist. You don't need a degree in psychology. You only need honesty and the courage to stay with what rises when you stop pretending. Let's take a moment. Imagine a woman. She's always cheerful, always helpful. People call her an angel. But deep down she resents everyone. Because she's exhausted. Because she never says no. Because no one ever asked her what she wanted. One day, in a moment of desperation, she writes in her journal, "I hate being kind." That sentence cracks something open. She weeps, and then for the first time in her life, she starts saying no without guilt. Not because she's selfish, but because she finally saw the shadow behind her smile. Or imagine a man, highly successful, respected. But each night he drinks, and every time he looks in the mirror, he hates who he sees. He tries journaling out of desperation, and he writes, "I still blame myself for my brother's death." The words feel like poison, but they are also truth, and that truth becomes a doorway. Shadow work is never pretty. It's not an Instagram quote. It's not a bubble bath or a vision board. It's raw, it's messy, it's terrifying, and it's real. So ask yourself, are you ready to see the part of you that sabotages your happiness? Can you sit with the anger you've been hiding for years? Are you willing to write the truths you've never spoken aloud? Are you brave enough to read them back? This isn't therapy, it's initiation, and it begins with a pen. Her name was Elira. From the outside, she was everything the world applauds. A high-achieving academic, graceful speaker, radiant in every room. She smiled like she'd never known sadness. She posted inspiring quotes about healing, growth, light. She even taught mindfulness classes. But Elira was dying inside. Not all at once, just slowly enough that no one noticed. Especially her. Because Elira had mastered performance. She learned from a young age that being lovable meant being agreeable. That being spiritual meant suppressing anger. That being evolved meant silencing the wounded child inside her who wanted to scream. And so she buried her rage. She buried her shame. She buried the grief of losing her mother twice, once to cancer, and once again when her father remarried and told her, "It's time to stop crying. You're not a little girl anymore." She never cried again. But the tears had to go somewhere. So they became migraines. They became panic attacks she called random. They became dreams where she wandered through empty cities, searching for someone she couldn't name. One night, after teaching a guided meditation to a full retreat room, Elira collapsed in her car, the applause still ringing in her ears. She gripped the steering wheel and whispered, "Why do I feel like I'm disappearing?" No one had ever asked her how she was. So she stopped asking too, until something old and silent, finally demanded to be heard. She didn't plan to journal that night. The notebook had been a gift from a student, still wrapped in ribbon, still untouched. But that night she tore it open, not gracefully, not mindfully. She tore it like something inside her was clawing its way out. And on the first page she didn't write a mantra. She didn't write a prayer. She wrote, "I hate being good." And then her hand wouldn't stop. The words spilled like blood, ugly, honest, raw. "I hate that I always have to be the light. I'm angry she died and left me to fix everything. I don't want to be calm. I want to break something. I miss being a child, before I had to heal everyone else." She wrote until the page tore from pressure, until her fingers cramped, until she tasted salt from her own tears, until silence finally came. Not the silence of repression, but the silence after a storm. And then she wrote one more thing, with the hand of someone reborn. "I am allowed to be real." That sentence echoed in her chest, not as a mantra, but as a homecoming, a resurrection, a rebellion against the version of her that had been built to please. That night, she didn't just journal. She cracked the mirror, and for the first time, she saw what had been hiding behind her smile. The days that followed weren't filled with peace. They were filled with truth. Elira began to write every morning, not as a habit but as a ritual of unmasking. Each journal entry was a confession, a confrontation, a claiming. She wrote about the mother she idolized and how she resented being left alone to grieve in silence. She wrote about her relationships, how she attracted partners who needed healing, because she didn't believe she deserved to be loved as she was. She wrote about the time she screamed at her reflection and then apologized to herself. Through her writing, Elira met the parts of her that had been frozen in time: the angry girl, the desperate teenager, the grieving daughter. She welcomed them. She listened. She learned to say, "I forgive you for hiding. You were trying to survive." And in that space, something extraordinary happened. Her migraines faded. Her panic loosened its grip. She began to speak more slowly, less performative, more real. She said no to clients. She took a month off. She went home to visit her mother's grave and cried for 3 hours without shame. And when she returned to her retreat students, she no longer taught them how to be perfect. She taught them how to be whole, how to hold space for their rage, how to grieve without rushing, how to journal not to fix, but to listen. She became a mirror, not of perfection, but of courage. And the journal, now dog-eared and stained with salt and ink, sat always by her bedside, a sacred artifact, the first place she ever met herself. In Jungian psychology, the shadow isn't evil. It's simply unseen. Carl Jung defined the shadow as the unconscious part of the psyche, everything you hide, reject, or refuse to acknowledge, the impulses you've judged, the emotions you've buried, the memories that never made it to the light. But here's the paradox. What you suppress doesn't disappear. It becomes active in the dark, and it drives your life from the shadows. Everyone carries a shadow. Jung wrote, "The less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." So what does this mean? It means that the kindest person may carry unacknowledged rage. The most confident leader may harbor crippling insecurity. The most spiritual teacher may secretly struggle with resentment and pride. This isn't hypocrisy. It's fragmentation. The goal of shadow work isn't to eliminate darkness, but to integrate it, to give voice to the parts of you that have only known silence. Journaling becomes a mirror for this integration, not to judge what you find, but to finally see it, and by seeing, begin to transform. Your pen becomes a flashlight in the cave. Each word brings awareness, each sentence a bridge between the unconscious and conscious. When you write what you fear, what you hate, what you regret, you reclaim it from the shadows, and only what's reclaimed can be healed. Let's look at Marcellus, a father of 2, corporate VP. Charismatic, he was known for his generosity. He paid for his niece's college, sponsored co-workers, always gave more than he received. But behind closed doors, he was exhausted and bitter. His marriage was collapsing. He felt invisible. And despite his success, he battled insomnia and secret drinking. During a journaling retreat, he was asked to finish the sentence. "I resent," he wrote, "I resent everyone who depends on me, and then I hate that I can't say no without guilt." That sentence cracked open years of unconscious sacrifice. He realized his generosity wasn't always love. It was control. It was a performance to feel needed, to avoid abandonment, Shadow work helped him stop giving from resentment and start giving from truth. Another case, Lila. She was a therapist, known for her empathy and presence, but she couldn't hold a relationship. Every time she felt intimacy building, she would sabotage it, ghost the person, pick a fight, disappear. In one journaling session, she wrote, "I'm terrified of being known," because in her childhood, being known meant being controlled. She grew up with a narcissistic parent who weaponized her emotions. Her shadow believed, if someone sees me, they'll own me, so she stayed invisible. Unconsciously, shadow work gave her language for what therapy hadn't named. A survival strategy had become a prison, and journaling was the key that opened the door. In both cases, truth didn't come through talking. It came through writing, because there's a difference between speaking for others to hear and writing for your own soul to witness. So, what are you hiding? What memory keeps showing up in your dreams, but you dismiss it as random? What emotion rises when you're triggered, but you smother it with distraction or positivity? What belief do you secretly hold about yourself? One so cruel that you've never said it aloud. Is it I don't deserve love unless I earn it? I'm always the problem. I'll never be truly safe. What if these aren't flaws, but fragments? Fragments that belong to your story. Fragments that once protected you, but are now asking to be held. You see, shadow work isn't about fixing who you are. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to hide. And that remembering doesn't happen all at once. It happens in the quiet, in the scribble of a pen, in the line that makes your hand shake, in the sentence that makes you cry. So let me ask you, when was the last time you let yourself be honest, without editing, without apology? When did you last write not to inspire, but to reveal? What if your ugliest thoughts are just scared truths, waiting to be welcomed? What would happen if you stopped censoring your pain and started decoding it? Your shadow isn't here to destroy you. It's here to free you, but only if you have the courage to pick up the pen and face the page. Let's begin with the truth. Writing is not passive, it's alchemy. When you journal from your shadow, you're not just documenting thoughts, you're summoning ghosts. You're turning the unconscious into words. You're naming what was once nameless. And in shadow work, naming is power. When you write, your internal world becomes visible. You give your pain shape, your shame structure, your fear a form you can speak to. Most people journal to feel better. Shadow journaling asks you to feel deeper. It's not about organizing your goals or tracking your habits. It's about stepping into the underworld with a candle in your hand. The page doesn't judge. It doesn't interrupt. It doesn't correct you. It lets you speak what's unspeakable. You don't need poetic language. You don't need clarity. You just need to bleed honesty onto the paper. Even if it doesn't make sense, even if it terrifies you, especially if it terrifies you, because the words that scare you are the ones that free you. These next 3 prompts aren't cute. They're not safe, but they are sacred. If you follow them fully, they won't just change how you think, they'll change what you're willing to feel. Let's begin. Prompt 1. If they truly knew me, they would... This sentence cuts through the masks. Complete it without thinking. Repeat it 5 times. Each time go deeper. Examples. If they truly knew me, they would see how much I hate needing help. Realize I've been pretending to be okay for years. Leave me, let the sentence reveal what you fear most about being seen. Don't filter, don't justify, just let it speak, then sit with what shows up. Breathe, write what it feels like in your body. Prompt 2. The part of me I judge the most is, this one demands honesty. It may bring up disgust, denial, even tears. That's a good sign. Name the part you try to hide, your jealousy, your laziness, your anger. Then ask, why do I judge this part? Who taught me this was wrong? Now speak to that part, like it's a younger version of you. What does it need to hear? What would happen if you welcomed it back? Prompt 3. My silence is protecting. We often confuse silence with strength, but silence can also be a shield. Finish the sentence. My silence is protecting my father's reputation, my illusion of being strong, my fear of rejection. Then write what your silence is costing you. This prompt opens the door to your unspoken truth. And only when you know what your silence protects, can you choose whether it's still worth it. If you're still listening, it means part of you is ready. Even if it's trembling, even if it's unsure, you don't need to do all 3 prompts in one night. This isn't a checklist, it's a ritual. Here's how to begin. Choose one prompt, set a timer for 15-20 minutes. Light a candle, if it helps, turn off your phone. Let the first sentence lead you. Don't reread, don't revise, just release. If tears come, let them. If rage rises, don't suppress it. You're not here to look good, you're here to know yourself. And in knowing there is liberation, so ask yourself now, what part of me have I never written about? Because I was afraid it would make me unlovable. Can I hold that part for 15 minutes without trying to fix it? Can I be the witness that my shadow never had? Because that's what journaling is in shadow work. It's not just writing, it's witnessing, it's reparenting. It's saying you are no longer exiled. I see you now. You will be tempted to avoid this. You'll feel resistance. You'll think, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. But let me tell you, your shadow waits in silence. And every day you avoid it, it becomes louder, not outside, but inside. The cost of avoiding your truth is living a life built on pretense. So tonight, choose to write. Choose to break the pact of silence. Choose to meet the self you've buried. You are not broken. You are simply unspoken. Take a deep breath. Let's slow down, not to escape, but to enter. Because the questions that change you are not the ones you answer fast. They are the ones that linger, the ones that ache. Tonight, let them ache. Question 1. What fear have you locked away because it made you feel weak? Question 2. What memory still holds the power to change your breathing? Question 3. What emotion do you judge in others because you secretly carry it yourself? Question 4. What truth would you write if no one would ever read it? Now, let's walk through these slowly. Let them breathe. Pause for question 1. What fear have you locked away because it made you feel weak? Not all fear comes with screams. Some fear comes quietly, as over-apologizing, as smiling too much, as never asking for help. What were you taught about fear? That it made you vulnerable, unworthy, childish? But what if fear is the child knocking from the basement saying, I saw something once and no one helped me feel safe again? Let that version of you speak. Let the words rise. Don't silence them this time. Pause for question 2. What memory still holds the power to change your breathing? You know the one. The image that returns uninvited. The moment you felt abandoned, or betrayed, or blamed. Maybe no one else thought it was big, but to your nervous system, it was an earthquake. Breathe slowly, not to calm it, but to meet it. Write what you needed in that moment, what wasn't said, what should have been, and then write what you would say now to that younger version of you. Let your breath carry you back and forward again. Pause for question 3. What emotion do you judge in others because you secretly carry it yourself? Be honest. Jealousy, rage, neediness. What if your harshest judgments are secret reflections? What if what triggers you is a shadow longing to be integrated? Write a letter to that emotion, not as an enemy, but as a part of you, a misunderstood soldier. Ask it, what are you trying to protect? Let the answer come. Pause for question 4. What truth would you write if no one would ever read it? This is where the work deepens. Beyond roles, beyond performance, beyond the voice that edits. What if you burned the page after writing? Would you be more honest? Then write like fire. Don't just write what happened. Write what it meant, what it felt like, what it took from you, what it gave you. You don't owe the truth to the world, but you owe it to yourself, because unspoken truths still live inside you, and the longer they stay silent, the louder they echo through your choices. Final reflection. Shadow work isn't about finding answers. It's about building intimacy with your questions. So don't rush. Don't force. Let one question take a day. Let one sentence change a season. This isn't homework. This is resurrection. So tonight, if you can, sit in silence after this video ends. No music, no screen, just your breath, and ask, what part of me just woke up? What part of me is still afraid to speak? And when the whisper comes, don't turn away. Lean in. His name was Noah, an artist with calloused hands, and a quiet stare he painted emotions he couldn't name. People said he was gifted, but he didn't feel that way. He lived alone, in a cluttered loft filled with canvases he never sold. His walls were covered in faces, screaming, weeping, staring back. But Noah had a ritual. Each night after midnight, he'd light a single candle, open a worn leather journal, and write exactly one sentence. Only one. He called it the sentence of the shadow. It simply arrived, unedited, unfiltered. Sometimes it was, I'm afraid of becoming my father, or I don't want to be loved. I want to be worshipped. And once I missed the girl I pushed away because she saw too much. Noah didn't share these sentences, not online, not with friends. He said they were his soul's confessions, too raw to be judged, too holy to be explained. He didn't know it yet, but each line wasn't just a release. It was a map, a breadcrumb trail leading home. One night, the sentence came slowly. He almost couldn't write it. His hand trembled. Finally, it landed. I think I wanted my brother to die. Ewa stared at the page in horror. How could he write that? What did it mean? Was it true? His brother had died in a car crash 8 years ago. They had fought that day. Noah remembered wishing, in a flash of rage, that his brother would disappear. Then he did. Yua never forgave himself. He became kind, soft-spoken, a performance of innocence. He painted sadness, but never confessed guilt. That sentence, ugly, unthinkable, unbearable, was the first time he told the truth. Beneath the truth, he didn't want his brother to die, but he had wanted escape from the blame, from the comparison, from the feeling that he was always second. And when his brother was gone, Noah buried himself with him. That night, Noah didn't just write, he wept, he screamed. He whispered, "I'm sorry," into the silence, not just to his brother, but to the boy inside him, who never got to grieve like a child. Weeks passed, and something shifted. Noah's art changed. The faces he painted now looked outward, not trapped in torment, but reaching, witnessing, alive. He began writing longer entries. He didn't stop at one sentence anymore. He wrote letters to his shadow. He let it answer. The darkness became a dialogue, and in that conversation he found his voice. He reconnected with old friends, apologized, laughed more. He began teaching free art classes to teens dealing with grief. He said, "I don't teach painting. I teach how not to lie to yourself." One student asked him, "How did you learn all this?" And he simply said, "By writing what I was most afraid to admit." He never stopped the ritual, but now when he wrote his sentence, he smiled because he knew what it meant. That even his darkest truth was survivable, that the shadow wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And on the final page of that journal, in clean, slow script, he wrote, "Your truth will not destroy you, but your silence might." So here we are, at the end of a journey that actually begins where this video ends. You've seen the shadow not as a monster to slay, but as a voice you've ignored. You've felt the tremble of truth rise through writing. You've met yourself on the page, not the curated version, but the wounded, sacred, unfiltered self who has waited years to be heard. From Alira's silent grief to Noah's unbearable confession, to your own reflections. This wasn't just content, it was initiation, a ritual. Shadow work isn't a trend, it's a return to wholeness, to clarity, to courage. Because in a world that trains us to smile through suffering, to filter our pain, to hide what makes us human, choosing to be honest is revolutionary. And now you have 3 keys, 3 prompts, 3 mirrors, 3 doors. The question is, will you open them?
If this video stirred something in you, if even one sentence reached into the silence you've carried, then don't let this be the end. Pick up your journal tonight, face the page, light the candle, let the shadow speak. And if you want more tools, more stories, more reflections, subscribe to UMBRA INSIGHT, where we dive into shadow psychology, guide you through dark meditation, and walk alongside you through every phase of shadow work. This is the home of dark motivation, Jungian psychology, shadow self-integration, and real, raw personal transformation. You'll find guided exercises, deep breakdowns, and insights drawn from the hidden layers of legends, symbols, and your own inner world. Share this video with someone who needs to remember they're not alone in the dark. Because this community isn't about perfection, it's about inner power. And if you're ready to face what others fear, click subscribe. Light your journal ablaze with truth, and walk deeper into the wisdom that the world calls madness. Here's the truth no one told you. Silence is a slow suicide. You can wear 1,000 masks, earn 1,000 trophies, preach 1,000 affirmations, but if your shadow remains unspoken, you will always feel like a stranger to yourself. Your mind will succeed, your spirit will starve. So write, bleed, burn what no longer serves, and resurrect the self you buried to survive. Because the person you're becoming is hidden inside the truths you fear the most. And that truth, that rage, that grief, that guilt, it's not your enemy, it's your compass. The shadow is not darkness, it is direction. So tonight, don't look away, look in, and as you stare into your journal, remember, your shadow doesn't make you broken, it makes you real.